someone with an avoidant attachment style walks away, it can feel like they've shut the door for good. They vanish without warning, act cold, and pretend nothing ever mattered. If I told you their silence isn't always strength, it's strategy. See. Avoidants are wired to detach as protection, but detachment doesn't mean indifference. In fact, the silence gets louder, their emotions get heavier, they won't chase, but they'll leave clues. Hidden subtle, almost untraceable. But they're there. You just need to know where to look, because when you stop playing their game, their mask starts to slip. And what you see beneath it is the truth. They'll never say out loud they miss you deeply. In this video, we'll reveal 7 shocking clues that prove the avoidant hasn't truly let you go. If you've been stuck wondering, do they even care? This will open your eyes. Let's get into it. They may never admit it, but when an avoidant misses you, the first place it shows isn't in their words, it's in their silence. It's in the way they suddenly start orbiting your world again without directly stepping into it. You'll notice it when they start watching your stories, checking your posts, or popping up in places they never used to care about. They won't comment. They won't like anything. They're there, quiet, curious, present. This passive behavior is their version of closeness, because for an avoidant, vulnerability feels like danger, and admitting they miss you feels surrendering control. So instead of reaching out directly, they watch. They stalk your digital life from the shadows, convincing themselves that staying hidden protects them from rejection, while still feeding the craving they secretly feel. To the outside world, it looks like indifference. Adult Netflix, but you know something's off. There's a pattern to it, a consistency that doesn't match someone who's truly over you. They might appear on your profile just minutes after you post. Their name might pop up repeatedly on your viewers list. They might even use mutual friends to keep tabs on you. This isn't accidental. It's intentional, but deeply masked. It's the avoidance way of saying, I still care, without ever having to say a word. What's more telling is how calculated they are about it. They'll make sure you can see that they're looking, just enough to trigger curiosity in you, not enough to create any emotional expectation. It's a balancing act between control and closeness, fear and longing. The reason they resort to this silent observation is because the feelings they bury don't just disappear. They suppress, not erase. When they're left alone with their thoughts, the stillness becomes unbearable. That's when the memories hit hardest. Late at night, during quiet moments, they see something that reminds them of you, but rather than confront the H directly, they revert to what feels safe observation without involvement. They're hoping to feel connected without facing the risk of rejection, of being vulnerable, of appearing needy. They want to feel close again on their terms, terms that protect their ego and avoid emotional exposure. So when you stop chasing, when you detach and focus on yourself, it shakes something loose in them. The silence they once found comforting now feels like abandonment. And in their confusion, they do the only thing they can handle, watch from afar. How you know they haven't let go? It's not about the loud gestures, it's about the quiet ones. And sometimes silence speaks louder than anything else. Watching from the shadows might seem like nothing, but for someone terrified of intimacy, it's everything. Avoidants are masters at appearing unaffected. They walk away like it was easy, like their heart was never involved, like they're above the emotional storm they left behind. But the truth is, calm exterior is a performance, one they put on not for you, but for themselves. It's how they survive the conflict between wanting connection and fearing it. But if you pay attention closely, you'll start to see the cracks in their carefully constructed image. The truth starts slipping through when your silence becomes louder than their avoidance. When you stop reaching out, stop checking in, stop making them the center of your emotional world. That's when something shifts inside them. They're unbothered. Mask starts to break down. The emotional control they cling to so tightly begins to unravel. They may pretend they're at peace, but subtle changes give them away. Maybe they become more irritable in conversations with mutual friends. Maybe they start over explaining their life to people they know will carry that information back to you. Or maybe they start acting impulsively, jumping into distractions, oversharing online, or getting involved in things that seem out of character. These aren't random behaviors. They're emotional leaks. They're symptoms of a mind trying to suppress feelings it doesn't know how to process. Aren't emotionally absent. They're emotionally overwhelmed. They feel deeply, but process poorly. The person they once took for granted disappears from their emotional landscape. The silence becomes deafening. That silence forces them to confront something they hate. The possibility that you're moving on. It triggers their fear of being replaced, of losing emotional control, of no longer being important. That fear doesn't come out in words. It comes out in behavior. They might suddenly start talking about you in passive ways, making harmless jokes that seem out of place. They might criticize you to others just to get a reaction. Not because they're angry, but because they want to feel something from you. Anything. They might act like they've upgraded their life overnight, posting curated moments of fun and confidence. But it's not real. It's reaction. It's compensation. The reality is, avoidants don't handle distance well, not when it's forced on them by your strength, your silence, your growth. That's when they start to feel the emotional consequences of their detachment. That's when they realize they never truly moved on. They just buried the connection under layers of fear and denial. But as those layers crack, what's underneath isn't power, it's longing. And the most shocking part is that you'll never hear them say it out loud. You'll only see it when they start acting like the very thing. They accused you of being emotional, triggered, and reactive. Their unbothered mask begins to melt. And in that unraveling, you finally see what they've been hiding all along. They miss you more than they'll ever admit. The most unexpected yet revealing signs that an avoidant misses you is when they suddenly send a message. Random, casual, and seemingly pointless. It might be a meme, a question they could have Googled, or something vague like, "Just thought of you when I saw this." On the surface, it seems harmless, innocent. Beneath it lies a carefully calculated move. Avoidants don't reach out without internal debate. They wrestle with the desire to connect and the fear of vulnerability. So when they finally break that silence, even if the message looks meaningless, it carries emotional weight. It means they've been thinking. It means the space you created by stepping back is echoing in their mind. It means their detachment strategy is starting to fail. These messages aren't about what they say, they're about why they're sent. Avoidants often send test balloons. Subtle attempts to see if you'll respond. If you're still emotionally accessible, if the door is still open, they'll frame it in a way that feels non-committal because they can't handle rejection. Asking, "Did you see that thing on Netflix?" Or, "Do you still have that book I lent you?" Might seem irrelevant, but what they're really saying is, "You still there for me?" It's a way to feel close without putting their heart on the line. They don't want to say, "I miss you." That's too raw. So instead, they reach out in disguise, hoping to feel your energy again without having to face the emotional depth they fear. What's more interesting is when these messages arrive. They tend to show up when you've gone quiet, when you've stopped feeding their emotional ego, or when you've visibly started focusing on your own life. Always about the specific timing. It's about the emotional shift they can sense. Your detachment creates a vacuum. That vacuum pulls at their fear of being forgotten, replaced, or emotionally irrelevant. That fear drives them to reinsert themselves into your world. Not with sincerity, but with small, seemingly accidental reminders of their presence. Sometimes they'll even pretend they messaged you by mistake. The classic, oops, wrong person text. It's never accidental. It's a strategy cloaked in denial. They want you to respond. They want to see if your energy is still open to them. And most of all, they want to feel something, even if they can't define what that something is. For the avoidant, these breadcrumbs are their way of maintaining a connection while still protecting themselves. They're hoping you'll pick up the pieces and make the effort so they don't have to. So when those random messages come through, understand this, they're not random at all. They're small windows into the emotional chaos the avoidant is quietly navigating. Each word they send is a quiet confession they'll never say directly, a coded signal that says, I'm not of you, even when their pride screams otherwise. When you begin to glow up emotionally, when your energy shifts from anxious to grounded, from chasing to choosing, you send a silent but powerful message to anyone who ever took your presence for granted. And no one feels that impact more than the avoidant. See, avoidants thrive when they feel in control of the emotional dynamic. They pull away, expecting you to chase. They detach, hoping you'll beg for their attention. But when you don't, when you stop trying to fix, explain, or prove your worth, that's when the game flips. Suddenly, your growth becomes a mirror to them, a reflection of everything they avoided, everything they weren't ready to face. And instead of being proud of your strength, they feel deeply unsettled by it. What many don't realize is how deeply an avoidance ego is tied to the idea that you'll always be emotionally available. They may push you away, but they rely on the emotional safety net you provide. It's twisted, but true. They feel most secure when you're unsure of yourself. So the moment you stop chasing, the moment you choose self-respect over confusion, they get triggered. Not because they hate your strength, but because it reminds them of their emotional immaturity. Your evolution, especially when it's visible, when you look lighter, speak with clarity, carry yourself differently, becomes a direct challenge to the story they told themselves. You'd always be there, waiting. They won't tell you that, of course. Instead, they'll show it in strange ways. They may become passive-aggressive or act annoyed through mutual contacts. They might start subtly criticizing you or downplaying your growth as if it doesn't matter. But underneath that dismissiveness is discomfort. Because deep down, they see you changing, and that scares them. It threatens the version of the relationship where they had the upper hand. It forces them to face the fact that you're no longer seeking validation from them, that your self-worth is no longer tethered to their presence. Sometimes they respond by trying to one-up your glow up. You'll notice sudden shifts in their lifestyle, exaggerated posts, rapid new connections, impulsive ventures that scream, "Look at me! I'm doing great too!" But it's not genuine confidence. It's competition. It's them trying to catch up emotionally, but doing it all from a place of fear, not healing. Your peace becomes their panic. Your detachment becomes their disorientation. They miss you, but they don't know how to say it without admitting that your absence affects them more than they expected. This is the ironic twist in the avoidant dynamic. They distance themselves thinking they'll feel free. But when you find true freedom without them, it makes them feel abandoned. Because their ego can't handle that contradiction, they act out instead of reaching out. But their reactions, no matter how petty or performative, always reveal one thing. Your evolution got under their skin. And whether they admit it or not, it's proof they're still emotionally tied to you in ways they can't explain, but deeply feel. When an avoidant starts to miss you, they rarely say it outright, but their social media becomes a battlefield of hidden signals and emotional games. One of the most telling signs is when their online presence suddenly changes. It becomes louder, more curated, more reactive. Before, they might have been passive, posting occasionally or barely at all. But after you detach and begin focusing on yourself, their digital behavior often shifts into overdrive. You'll start to notice cryptic quotes, aggressive memes, or sudden updates that scream, "I'm doing just fine without you." But if you look closer, it's not confidence, it's control. They're not posting to share their life. They're posting to get a reaction from you. This is the digital version of leaving breadcrumbs. An avoidant who misses you won't risk reaching out directly. That would mean vulnerability, and vulnerability terrifies them. So instead, they leave indirect clues in your path, hoping you'll take the bait. A selfie with an extra filtered glow, a story featuring a new friend, or a song lyric laced with pain and pride. All of it is designed to make you feel something. Not because they want to resolve things, but because they want to know they still have emotional power. That you still see them, that you still care. What's more interesting is how intentional it often is. Airing on Netflix. For someone who pretends not to care, they're suddenly obsessed with being seen. They might time their stories for when they know you're online. They might tag places they know are meaningful to you. They might even watch your stories religiously, without ever engaging. It's a digital standoff, one where they refuse to make the first move, but can't stop circling your presence. It's silent, but it's emotionally loud. You might also notice they become extra active only after you post something positive. Maybe you shared a moment of joy, success, or peace, and suddenly here they are posting their own version of "I'm thriving too." But it doesn't come from true happiness. It's rooted in competition. It's their way of saying, "I don't need you either," even though their actions say otherwise. Their sudden need for online validation is driven by the internal discomfort your absence has created. And in their mind, the only way to soothe that discomfort is to make you feel what they're feeling. Confused, triggered, emotionally unsure. This behavior is especially common in emotionally immature avoidants who are more invested in image than intimacy. They care deeply about how they're perceived, especially by someone they secretly still desire. But because they lack the emotional tools to reconnect with honesty, they rely on performance. Social media becomes their safe space to be vulnerable without risk. Because if you don't respond, they can pretend it was never meant for you. So the next time you see a sudden burst of posts, cryptic captions, or carefully crafted appearances, don't be fooled. It's not just content. It's communication. Online noise is just a mask for the silence they can't stand anymore. And buried in every filtered post is a simple, unspoken truth. They miss you. They're desperate for you to notice. One of the most psychologically revealing signs that an avoidant is missing you is when they begin mirroring your energy without even realizing it. This isn't just surface-level copying. It's a subconscious pull toward your emotional frequency triggered by a deep internal conflict. Avoidants, by nature, suppress their feelings. They pride themselves on emotional independence and staying in control. But when you detach, when you stop pouring into them and redirect that emotional investment into yourself, they feel it. Your absence creates an energetic void, and in trying to fill it, they unknowingly begin to reflect you. Your mood, your timing, your actions. It's not imitation. It's a subconscious longing for the connection they once rejected. You might start noticing that they post right after you do, that they adopt new habits or interests you've displayed online. Their tone and behavior eerily resemble the energy you're putting out. If you're calm, they become calm. If you go quiet, they go quiet. If you start glowing up, suddenly they're working harder to level up too. It feels like a strange emotional sync, but it's not accidental. It's emotional resonance. Your inner shift is activating something dormant in them. They don't even understand why they're drawn back to your frequency. They know is that your silence has power, and it's changing the emotional dynamic they once controlled. This mirroring often starts small. Maybe they begin using similar language in their captions, quoting things you've once said, suddenly engaging with content or activities they used to dismiss when you liked them. It escalates when they feel the emotional tension grow stronger, especially if they believe you're truly moving on. They begin to align with your emotional rhythm because deep down, feel close to you again, but without admitting it, it's their way of saying, I still feel you, without ever having to say it aloud. The irony is that while they're busy mirroring your energy, they still try to pretend like they're unaffected, but their actions betray that mask. The avoidance emotional compass begins to spin the moment they realize they're no longer the emotional center of your world. Your self-focus, your peace, likes, your glow. All of it becomes a magnetic force that disrupts their internal balance. And because they can't risk reaching out, they try to synchronize with you energetically. It's a quiet way of asking to be remembered, to be reconnected, without having to be vulnerable. In truth, it's a psychological defense. They're trying to stay attached without exposing themselves. So when you begin to notice strange coincidences in timing, tone, or behavior, trust your instincts. Airing on Netflix. You're not imagining things. You're witnessing the silent pull of emotional connection reactivating in someone they could detach forever. They may never admit it. They may never act on it. But in their quiet mimicry, in their emotional alignment with your energy, they're revealing something powerful. They're still bonded to you, still watching, still hoping for some kind of closeness, even if it's only from a distance. In relationships with avoidance, what's left unsaid often speaks louder than words. Their silence, their